welcome to this week's episode of Lagnia-Pod. I'm Rob Holbert, your host. I'm here at the rectangular round table with Lagniap's finest. Y'all sound off.
Scott Johnson.
Brady Petrie.
Kyle Hamrick.
Tommy Hicks.
It's just like the beginning of 60 Minutes, where they each say their name. Yeah, it's a lot like that. A lot like that. Without the presidential lawsuit. So this week's cover, we talked about Blight some last week in last Lagnia-Pod, and the Mayor Stimson at the Downtown Mobile Alliance breakfast last week saying, hey, before I get out of here, one of the things I want to do is do something here to get this downtown blight under control. But Brady, this week, you kind of went through some of that a little bit, but also then went and talked to the 75 people who are running for mayor and asked each one of them what they thought about blight.
I think it's up to 76 now.
Well, okay,
but
I can't.
That's besides the point.
Look, that's you got to have the whiteboard is constantly being erased. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, Mayor Stimson really pitched this idea to put all the blighted properties downtown on a registry and basically, irritate more or less these property owners who are not doing anything.
Motivate.
Right. Irritate.
Motivation through irritation. Yeah.
These property owners who are just letting these buildings just rot. And so, while he's going to try to get this off the ground before he leaves office in October, it's really going to be up to the next administration, whoever that, may be, to really enforce this registry and make sure that these property owners are abiding by the city's ordinances.
And that would include things such as making sure there's electricity, making sure the plumbing works, making sure that they have fire suppression,
yes,
or at least fire alarms and things like that are functioning.
Right, outdoor lighting, fire alarms,
yeah. I mean, when you look at the building that's on the cover of the paper, which you took a lovely picture of, I think suitable for framing, I believe.
I think half of my camera roll on my phone is just of blighted
blighted properties. Yeah, so it's this building would seem to me probably not to have perhaps any of those things that that does not look like it might have electricity, plumbing, or any sort of fire suppression or fire alarms of any sort. So somebody like that who has that building, they might find themselves having to put some actual cash into it. Right.
Yeah.
So you interviewed, I know that there was some pushback from Councilman William Carroll, who's not been a fan of some of this stuff in the past. And I didn't quite get, he said, hey, we need to enforce the laws that are already in the books, which I don't really know what exactly that means. We've been dealing with the same stuff for a very long time.
Right.
But that's his take on it. The question of whether the council would be behind this or not. I mean, it gets into that whole area of your personal property, and is it your right to have a piece of property that's just let it go to garbage, or does that infringe upon the rights of the people around you, who are trying to make a living or have a business or building that's functional and maybe growing in value, etc. So it's that old thing of where do your rights, the right to swing your arm ends where my nose begins, or something like that. It's that kind of thing.
Well, another interesting thing is Carol mentioned this is singling out these business owners, and it is, it is singling them out, and
I don't know why they shouldn't be singled out.
Exactly.
Personally, it's just my personal opinion. They should be singled out because they have had decades, in many cases, to take care of this stuff.
Right. And it's like you said, it's like Mayor Stimson said at the breakfast last week. These buildings, they don't just impact the property owner; they impact everything around it, and it has a huge issue with safety. As evidenced by the Hoffman's furniture fire, that almost could have easily burned down that entire block.
Could have burned down the block,
if not more. And it also has a huge economic impact because, like you said, who is going to want to put their business right next to one of these buildings?
Well, the thing is too, it's that a lot of these buildings are owned by entities that are well known, that have money. Like I've said before, the Senior Bowl has a couple of these buildings. I believe this may be one of those Senior Bowl buildings that's on the cover, that is owned by the Senior Bowl. The The building, I think, that burned down was actually owned by the diocese.
Right.
The Archdiocese of Mobile, the Catholic Church, they got a few bucks too. There's some people who could take care of these things. And so it's not an issue of, this isn't, some poor widow who was left a building that she's holding on to. A lot of these folks have wherewithal to take care of them, or they could get rid of them, sell them, but they don't do either. They hang on to them. So you went out and talked to the mayoral candidates, and what did you find by and large?
For the most part, they're all on board with some form of a registry or really enforcing the city's, hand in terms of dealing with the blight. The only candidate who really came out against it was Stephen Nodine, who basically said, the Downtown Mobile Alliance already has a list of these buildings. Why do we need another one?
He used as an opportunity to slam Downtown Mobile Alliance, one of his favorite punching bags. He has an issue with them.
He does.
And so, at that, I'm not sure Downtown Mobile Alliance is really the proper venue, but that's his take on it. But the one that was disappointing, or, to me, I just thought, or to me, he just missed a complete opportunity, is Paul Prine, former police chief. What did he have to say?
Nothing. He had nothing to say on it. And, I asked all the candidates, around the same time. I said, hey, this is my question. What can you get me? And for the most part, they all got me, something relatively quick. And, Prine initially had told me that, we could talk on the phone about this.
Yeah.
He seemed very open to it. And then as the deadline got closer and closer, he eventually just said that he hadn't read or seen enough on the topic to provide, quote, a reasonable response. And,
this is,
that for somebody who I think a lot of people point to as kind of a single issue mayor in terms of, he's really wanting to hammer home law enforcement and public safety. This was a key opportunity for him to be like, hey, I'm not just about this one thing. I can handle blight. I can handle these issues, and drop the ball on it, it seems.
Yeah. I mean, to me, I would say, there's an opportunity there to express some ideas and some thoughts. And his thought was, I have not read enough about this, even though he was given some time to possibly go and read about it.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
One would assume as the chief of police, he would have been aware of the condition of downtown as well. This shouldn't be a new issue for him, period.
And I mean, gosh, we've written about blight so many times over the past couple of years. And, going back to a story I've written before where I spoke with James Barber, former police chief, who said, hey, when I was police chief, blight was a huge issue. We had all these rundown buildings where a lot of gang operations were set up in these and everything. So, I mean, you're right. He did have, I would assume, as police chief, have opportunities to look at blight and the correlation with crime, and this seemed like the perfect opportunity for him to do so. But
it does. I mean, you look at it and you wonder, like, well, what is his plan to be if he's going to be a strong candidate in this race? And there are many people who are behind him. I mean, there's certainly a loud coalition of people who want Paul Prine to be mayor, and I just still, like every time we try to have a conversation with him about something, he doesn't want to have a conversation about it, whatever it is, whether it's where he lives or whether it's downtown Blight or it's anything. It is just, not going to talk about that. I don't know how you run for office with that going on. I can just say this, if there's nobody that I would be comfortable with running for being mayor if they don't have some kind of opinion on this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, even, Pastor Michael Woodard, who's the latest one to jump into this race, he was the first one who got back to me with a response, and I mean, he's, make of his response what you will. You can read the article, but I mean, like I said, he got something to me, and this is somebody who, has not held public office, position before.
I would just venture to guess that, 85% of the people in this area have some kind of understanding of this and thought about it. I mean, if you've been downtown, period, you've probably seen it, and you may have some thought about it. Yeah. I just find it hard to believe a guy could say, I don't know enough about it.
Yeah, and I mean, if he's going to say it on this, well, what is he going to say on infrastructure or other key issues?
I know we sound like we're landed on kind of hard, but it is. I mean, this is a situation where it's an opportunity for somebody who's running for mayor to I know Prime would love to just make the race about crime. I understand that. And I'm sure there are several people who would like to make the race strictly about crime.
Yeah.
It's the easiest thing to talk about and offer potential solutions that will not do anything for the most part. I mean, we can get into that, but I think that, we'll talk about crime and talk about crime and talk about crime and hope that something happens to it. But, when he was chief of police, there was crime.
Yeah.
When Lawrence Batiste was chief of police, there was crime.
Mm-hmm.
It's this on and on and on. It's not, there are other issues that we need to have some answers to, and I hope that
and
some of these people will.
When you've got 76 candidates or 75 candidates in a race,
right.
and you're the only one who doesn't provide any kind of response on a topic like that, you're going to stand out, not for the right reasons.
Yep. Stand out like a burned out building. Doesn't look good. Anyway,
Exactly.
We're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back and talk a little bit of sports with Tommy Hicks. We'll be right back. And we are back with the lovely and talented Tommy Hicks. I haven't called you that in a little bit, so
I appreciate it.
I don't want you to think you're falling off or anything. So we had the NFL draft is the big news this past week, and we had some local talent that made it, and some that didn't, but still found some pay dirt, right?
Yeah, we did. We had two guys from the area that grew up in the area that were drafted. Shamar James, who played at Faith Academy, became the very first Faith Academy football player to be selected in the NFL draft.
Very cool.
5th round. He's going to the Dallas Cowboys. He told me his
very nice.
Always been Cowboy fans.
I'm proud of him.
I know that you are.
I'm going to be watching him.
Good player. I mean, really good player. I think he entered the draft after his junior year, so he should do well there.
I was happy with the Cowboys draft, and he was
overall.
Overall,
Okay.
Very happy. Yeah.
And then, of course, Riley Leonard from Fairhope and Duke/Notre Dame was drafted by the Indianapolis Colts in the 6th round. So
good for him too.
That's a good fit, I think.
Yeah.
The Colts are a good fit for him.
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting. We had 4. South Alabama didn't have anybody selected in the draft, but they did have 4 players that were undrafted free agent signed contracts. We had
so that typically happens pretty quickly after the draft.
I mean, this happened like 5 minutes after the last.
So the draft's over.
Mr. Irrelevant was picked, and then
right after Shedeur Sanders was picked.
Yeah,
and then
pretty much.
And then they called him, right?
And then they called him. Yeah, and then they start hammering them. Then so it was. Yeah. It was good. It was. We talked last week that I thought that DJ Thomas Jones, the tight end, had the best. Best shot. He got signed and signed the largest undrafted free agent signing bonus given by the Brad?
The Jets, I think.
No.
Was it the Jets?
No. Steelers.
Yeah.
Pittsburgh Steelers to a non-quarterback. Other than a quarterback, he got 30,000 signing bonus just right off the
very nice for him.
So that tells you that they think he's got some potential for them.
He's good. Yeah.
And then of course you had Jamal Pritchett, who was the leading receiver for South this past year. Right. He signed free agent with the Jets. Another wide receiver, Jeremiah Webb, he signed free agent with the New England Patriots. And then Wykevious Thomas, Bubba. That's why everybody knows him as Bubba. He signed with the Seattle Seahawks. So that's good. I mean, that's a good little haul for South.
Yeah, it's good for South to have that
players in
happening. Yeah, that's great. And then you said a lot of these guys played at the Senior Bowl, I believe, right? So
Riley and James did play in the Senior Bowl. The Senior Bowl had 106 of their participants get drafted. That's a good number. They set a record with 50 of their players picked in the first 3 rounds. Previous high for them was, I think, 45 through the first 3 rounds. So.
Well, that really helps solidify the Senior Bowl. Continues to make it look like this is the place that people need to come, right?
Maybe quarterbacks.
Yeah, maybe quarterbacks. Maybe quarterbacks. Maybe opportunities missed. Maybe there's a tale there.
Is there anyone we should mention here?
There's a cautionary tale, perhaps that maybe that should be looked at.
Our good friend Randy Kennedy had a pretty good column this week.
Yeah.
Oh,
yes. Yeah.
He talked about a quarterback who chose not to attend.
Yes.
And apparently it had some bearing.
Yeah. Well, it is, so speaking to the Shedeur Sanders issue, obviously he was touted as potential number 1. He went in the 5th round. As a number 1 round, not number 1 overall, but
early
even top
he
3,
was,
right? Some people were talking about
considered possibly
top 3 quarterback, top 3 player, and then fell to the 5th round, and getting prank called along the way by the son of the Atlanta Falcons defensive coordinator, who I imagine may have been a bit peeved.
We have a little news on that, don't we, Brady?
Yeah, the NFL is actually fining the Falcons $250,000 for leaking that information, and they fined the defensive coordinator himself $100,000. Pretty expensive prank
that boy.
Son, you ain't living at the house
I'd be bringing that boy home for his senior year to work at Taco Bell.
If you're that kid, you don't go home for Thanksgiving or Christmas.
Yeah,
this year.
just
you
be
just find other plans.
Yeah, I don't.
They found their new mascot who worked for free.
Yeah, definitely
mascot full time.
Yeah, he needs to be doing something.
The Dirty Bird.
Yeah, he needs to be doing something. That was it. But anyway, his fall, his precipitous fall.
Yes.
Was what was the reason for it that you've heard? I heard something about bad interviews and certainly there's this attitude that is pervasive with him of constantly saying he's legendary, and he answered, you want something for dinner, legendary. It seems to be like his answer to almost everything. But is it just certainly there have been kind of overly cocky players in the NFL before who have been picked high, and his father being
one of them.
Although his father could back it up, I would say,
But his father didn't really like to tackle.
He didn't like to tackle. He didn't really have to tackle that much because they didn't throw the ball at him.
That's true.
He did shut down basically an entire field, half the field. And if you threw at him too much, he might be in the end zone. I would still say he was the fastest player in uniform I've ever seen, but
he's up there.
Hayes? Faster than Hayes?
I didn't see Hayes.
Oh, okay.
But
now I've really dated myself.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm not talking Isaac either.
Yeah.
So
what you talk about? Anyway.
Well, I think teens take a lot. You can see film and you can see what a player can do, and a lot of the things that I've heard since the draft was that the tape that they saw a lot of little mistakes that they didn't like.
Okay.
Accuracy issues,
right?
Decision
but
issues,
more so than like Jalen Milroe.
Yes,
I wouldn't consider Milroe a great pro quarterback. Would you?
It's going to be interesting.
He's certainly a great athlete.
He's certainly that, but he didn't dazzle anybody when he was here.
Yeah.
His accuracy was a big question when he was here for the Senior Bowl.
Yeah, he's a project quarterback. The Seahawks took him, and I think they're looking at it like, hey, we can kind of mold this guy into what we want, whereas Sanders is probably a much more difficult project to manage.
But he's not, I don't think Shedeur is very quick. He's not fast.
No.
Oddly enough. He did not get his dad's speed.
He did not.
So he's not fast, which in the NFL these days, being able to run is a big deal.
But you have to go into the interviews matter.
Yes,
the interviews matter a lot.
Yes,
and you got the general manager in there, you got the head of scouting, you've got the coaches, you got everybody you need to impress. And when you're on your iPhone and you're sending text messages while you're supposed to be, that's probably not a good sign.
So that's the kind of thing we're hearing, that maybe he was just very distracted during
during some of the meetings. If it was a team he was interested in, just from the stories I've heard,
right.
I obviously have no way of attesting this, but from what I've heard, that if it was a team he was interested in playing for, you got the
He's
full
locked in.
attention. If it was a team he didn't really care about being drafted by, then he didn't really care about being in the room.
But it did kind of have the feeling of like everybody had kind of got together and said, let's not draft this
Let's
guy.
not pick this kid.
Let's not pick this kid. You know,
Well, I mean,
somebody can get him in the 5th round. That's fine.
And he's going to a team that picked another quarterback in the 3rd round.
I know.
And so
it's
you know,
I mean,
what are the Browns
I mean,
saying?
it is really, first of all, I mean, if you're picked by the Browns as a quarterback, you might as well just go ahead and do something else.
just hang it up.
Yeah, just stop. Retire right now. I mean, it's just not, it is the place where quarterback dreams go to die. I mean, it is.
I think the Browns taking Sanders is a clear case of an owner stepping in and being like, hey, this guy's available. I see money in the air with all these jersey sales.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and take a flyer on
that. The coaching staff didn't seem happy.
They did not.
They didn't seem happy
at
about
all.
it. They didn't seem like they were overjoyed to have him joining the team. To have 2 rookie quarterbacks to deal with, along with the other 3 quarterbacks they already have on staff, on the roster.
I was kind of shocked because just the unified uproar of like sports commentators just be like, this is ridiculous. This should not be happening to this guy. And then you had even like Donald Trump chiming in. I was like, what is going on right now? Like, I didn't even know this guy was a big enough deal for all this outrage or faux outrage, whatever it was. But
I mean,
Mel Kiper lost his mind.
Yes. Well, it made
Mel's always lost his mind.
Mel didn't look good, in terms of his predictions on that one.
Yeah,
right?
wasn't a good look.
Well,
not good.
Mel Kiper also said that he would retire if Jimmy Clausen was not, the world's greatest quarterback, and I think Jimmy Clausen was out of the league in 2 years.
Jimmy who?
So exactly.
But
See,
Mel is still with us.
yeah. So
maybe they all had money on the draft, and that blew out their.
Well, it'll be a fascinating thing to see. I don't, just the fact that he went to Cleveland, I would, you'd have to bet that he will probably never have an opportunity to prove that he could be any good anyway, because nobody can come out of Cleveland and play quarterback. It just has been a garbage spot for quarterback. I mean,
it's impossible.
It's that or the Jets. Which one do you want to die? What hill do you want to die on? I mean, those are the two.
Cleveland has the
2 worst places to be drafted. Yeah,
Rock and Roll Hall of Fame's in Cleveland. So
you can go do that,
and it's close by. So,
there's something to visit. Well, anyway, so moving on, we also had this week we've got some pretty big baseball coming up.
Yeah, 3rd round of the playoffs, and big one locally. We have 5 teams still playing, but 2 of them play each other. It'll be UMS at St. Paul's. It's a best-of-3 series. Starts Friday.
No love lost there.
I'm sorry?
So no love lost between the 2.
No love lost. So it'll be a lot of fun. Both of them had to have comeback wins in Game 3 last week to make it
here.
This game.
Yeah.
So it's going to be. I think it's going to be a really good series.
Right, great deal. All right, thank you, Tommy. We appreciate it. We'll come back in just a minute, a little bit more. And we are back. So we had a couple of stories this week about the renaming of what I call Gulf Quest still, because I'm old school.
So does Mayor Stimson.
They can't stop calling it Gulf Quest. The National Maritime Museum of the Gulf of Mexico is changing its name because President Trump changed the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. And then people in the legislature were jumping on that, and they were going to codify this in law, right? So
that's right.
So what the Maritime Museum went ahead and said, we're doing this, right?
Yeah, they jumped out in front of this and said, we just want to go ahead and get it over with. And so they just dropped of Mexico from the end of their name. And so it's the National Maritime Museum of the Gulf.
Of the Gulf.
That's what they're officially named now. And they
could be the Gulf of Tonkin, could be the Gulf of whatever.
Could be whatever Gulf you want it to be.
Yeah, any Gulf.
Yes.
Anywhere you want it to be.
But, I mean, they went ahead and changed it and got out in front of this. And, I mean, you had, like you said, Trump's executive order. You had the state pushing for it. But then yesterday, the state came out.
And I was really shocked by this. This bill to make it the Gulf of America really had the momentum, but it just died.
It died
in the Senate committee. It got 4 votes for it, 4 votes against it, and a tie vote means you can't move forward. Committee? There were three Democrats and 5 Republicans and one of the Republicans joined the Democrats.
Sure, who
that was Jay Hovey from Auburn.
Yeah.
From where?
From Auburn.
Oh, Auburn.
Who crossed the party line and voted with the Democrats. If he had not have done that, the Gulf of America bill would be moving on to the Senate floor.
It would have required any sort of state agencies, et cetera, to change their name.
Did any Mobile or Baldwin County people vote in favor of this on the committee?
Chris Elliott
okay, so
voted
he
for
voted
this.
for his constituents to have to change all of their signs.
He was the chairman of the committee.
Well, why didn't he just do a voice vote like he's done before?
Well, he did do a voice vote.
Oh.
And four said no, and 4 said yes.
I didn't think you have to count.
Brady,
yeah, you do have to count for a voice vote.
You wrote the Gulf Quest story, right?
So
it was $40,000 to change. That's what they were thinking to do all of the.
$40,000. That's what they're thinking is going to cost to change everything, and they're not changing any of the existing exhibits. This is all for work that's ongoing, future exhibits, things like that. They're not changing anything that's currently in the museum. So, but it's going to cost them around $40,000 to do just that.
That seems like a good use.
Yeah, that's kind of for a facility who just recently, the city council had to bail them out again.
Yeah, I mean, for a facility that often brings in 200 or 300 people a year. I mean, it's getting better. They're working on
it.
Wait
until that Margaritaville.
I think they've got some good things going. I'm not trying to. They're trying to make the best of it, but yeah, spending $40,000 for a name change probably not in the budget.
No,
not a great idea.
Probably not. Oh, and Scott, I have to go back and say a voice vote. You were right. You don't have to count everybody for a voice vote. You just do. Everybody say aye, everybody say no. But what happened in this committee was a roll call vote where you say, Scott, how do you vote? Ashley, how do you vote? Sorry, I just had to go back in there to correct that. My mind was just not.
Do you think there was
a second?
Do you think that the crossover vote was a surprise, or do you just think that?
I think it definitely was a surprise. It definitely was a surprise to me because this thing sailed through the House. The Democrats from Mobile and Democrats from all over the state were talking about how they thought this was a dumb move, how much it was going to cost, but it seemed to have. I mean, it's got the support of the governor. She called. Yeah, hey,
I mean, if she woke up for this,
she sure did. She called it the Gulf of America in her.
She was there when they named it the Gulf of Mexico.
She sure was building sandcastles. Yeah, she was right there. It
is ageism. I'm sorry. Yeah. Yes, it is.
Sorry.
She's too old to be governor.
Yeah,
sorry.
So this definitely came as a surprise to me.
Wait, did he make a statement? Why he voted against it? The Auburn.
He did not. He did not. He just said, "Nope, ain't doing it."
Well, there you go. It is this thing is just fascinating in terms of just the amount of heat that it engenders, that it brings out in people. The anger level over this is unbelievable. I mean, it's just super intense. The
comments on the Facebook page.
I can't wait till hurricane season.
I mean, oh yeah.
Where is it? The Gulf of America or the Gulf of Mexico? Where is it?
One thing I've seen since the we published a story about the bill failing and everything is everybody's like, well, why did the museum go ahead and do this? And I think the easy answer, and I haven't been able to confirm this, but I think the easy answer is if the city wants to go ask for federal money, there's no way that the White House or whoever can hold this over the city and be like, hey, you guys change this name or else.
Do you think that's going to be good enough that it's just the Gulf?
I mean, that's a good point. I don't know if that's going to suffice or not, but I think that's kind of the thinking there is that the White House can't hold this over our heads in order to get funding.
As someone who's had to write out that name before news articles, I'm completely behind shortening the name. So, especially for some former employees who were very adamant about writing the full thing.
and it makes sense too to shorten it to the Gulf because that's what everybody calls it.
Yeah, I mean, nobody says let's go to the Gulf of Mexico or Gulf of America. I mean, you're not.
He says Gulf of Mexico is John Cougar Mellencamp.
That's right. The Gulf of Mexico.
Did you want me to pull up the song now?
Yeah. Well, you're not ready. We don't have time to wait for you to sift through your Apple Music to find the Little Pink Houses, but yeah, I mean, it is. We people get online and I really think they're going to kill each other at some point over this. I mean, it's just the I was reading the comments on Facebook from this story, and it made me sad after a while. I was just like, God, I know some of these people, and they're losing their minds, calling each other names, and just like, I really thought if these folks were in the same room right now, they would kill one another.
God,
they would kill one another
massacre
over the Gulf of America, Gulf of Mexico thing. Gulf of Mexico. Yeah.
He's going to change that song.
He better.
Yeah.
He better. Anyway, it's
T-shirt sales are going to be super hot, though. I mean, like Gulf of America,
apparently
Gulf of Mexico. It's a team now. I mean, it's
apparently
team Mexico.
Ashley said she has some T-shirt experience on this.
The Gulf of the Gulf.
Down at the Gulf.
The Gulf of the Gulf.
The Gulf of Gulf.
With
Down
a
at the
friend of
Gulf.
mine, and she really wanted a Gulf of Mexico T-shirt. I was like, we are nearly 50 years old. I've never seen a Gulf of Mexico T-shirt one time in our entire lives of growing up here. But sure enough, there were a million Gulf of America T-shirts and all of the surf styles and all of that. And she was very upset by that. So she had a Gulf of Mexico T-shirt airbrushed that she is now sporting. And I was like, well, I hope that makes you feel better.
My wife and my sister-in-law and all have a kayak group. They bought Gulf of Mexico T-shirts and wore on the last trip.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They're out there.
I just imagine Jim Cramer being like, invest in textiles right now. Just because invest. Yeah, joke's on them because all the T-shirts are made in China anyway.
Yeah,
and tariffs on the Gulf of Mexico, Gulf of America shirts.
It's something. I mean, it is really amazing the amount of heat and energy that this name change thing really gets going. I mean, it makes no sense to me, and it's going to change back, I'm sure, eventually, whenever the next president comes in. But now the states, if states have codified these things as law, then it's not just going to be as simple as somebody signing a new executive order. It will be. I mean, I know that, I think Louisiana has codified it. I think Florida has, and
Texas is working on it. Yeah.
So there will be most of the states around that touch the Gulf of whatever you want to call it, are going to have made laws that say you have to call it Gulf of America. So that will be, it will not as easily be undone by the next executive.
Body of water, what I want to call it.
Yeah,
I think if you don't live on the Gulf, you don't get a say.
Call it Hurricane Alley.
And West Palm Beach is not on the Gulf.
The Gulf of Ashley.
Yeah,
just go with that. Why don't we all just call it whatever we want?
I mean, why not?
I like the Gulf of Ashley.
So, maybe maybe it would be a good nappy category next year. What are you calling it? That would be just really start the Civil War right there. Speaking of the nappies, speaking of the Civil Wars, nappy voting is on.
It is not on yet. It is 1 week from today.
Well, it's almost, week from today.
Yes, we start next Wednesday at 3 p.m. That is a slight, we have pushed it back a little bit just because it takes.
But the finalists are out.
The finalists are out. They're both on votenappies.com and Lagnia-Mobile. You can see it.
We prefer that you get a subscription and come see it at Lagnia-Mobile versus going to look at it for free at votenappies.com.
Yes. But yes, you can vote starting next week once per day per category. And,
yes.
And it'll go through June 1st, and then we'll tally it all up and announce the winners and have a big old party in July and announce them in the July 16th issue.
Yes. Well, good. All right. Well, that's all we have for this week, folks. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back next Thursday with the next Lagnia-Pod. Take care.
The Lagnia-Pod is a Something Extra publishing production. Executive producers are Rob Holbert and Ashley Trice. Music is by Some Pulse Sound and Electro Animals. Only subscribers like you have access to this podcast. Tell your friends they can sign up at my.lagnia-mobile.com. For advertising opportunities, please call 251-450-4466.